Everybody's heard about the margarita, everyone's heard about the old fashioned, but today we're gonna be exploring some hidden gems. And by that, I mean some cocktail recipes that you might have not heard before, but you definitely need to try and add to your cocktail Rolodex. Welcome to Cocktail Limelight. I'm your host, Erick Castro, and today we're gonna be exploring some hidden gems from the old Mr. Boston cocktail book that was printed in 1969. One of the things about me is I love collecting old cocktail books, partly because, I just like the way they look, I like the way they smell, I love the smell of old books, but also because I just love diving into them and finding really cool old recipes. Maybe they're not popular anymore, maybe they're not the current cocktail trends, or maybe they were just super popular and there's just tons of overstock. But in either case, I picked this book up years ago and just spent a lot of time diving into it. Now, don't get me wrong, there are some real stinkers in this book. Some of the drinks in here are just terrible. For instance, the Kentucky cocktail, 2 parts pineapple to 1 part bourbon. That's not a cocktail recipe, that's a red flag. In addition, it's a sign that you need to restock your home bar. But in all seriousness, there are some really cool cocktail recipes in here. And if you're willing to shuffle through the clutter, you might be able to find some good ones. But if you don't feel like it, you don't have to. You know why? Because I already did that for you, and I'm gonna show you my 3 favorites that I found. This first cocktail is called the Spring Feeling, and it kind of reminds me of a Champs-Élysées meets a Last Word. It's herbaceous, it has chartreuse, it has gin, lemon. It's very delicious, and it's very simple to make. Speaking of which, let's do that now. First, we're gonna add 3/4 ounce lemon juice, 1/2 ounce of simple syrup, 1/2 ounce of green chartreuse, and 1.5 ounces of London dry gin. Super simple. So far, the Spring Feeling is just 4 ingredients. We're gonna shake it up and get it nice and cold. Now that we got that drink strained into a nice chilled coupe, I'm about to garnish it with the lemon twist. And there you have it, the Spring Feeling. Super simple, very elegant, 4 ingredients. What more could you want? This next cocktail was invented in 1936 by George Becker, who happened to be the lead bartender at the Emerson Hotel in Baltimore. This cocktail is called the Preakness, and it's a riff on the Manhattan, but with the introduction of a little bit of Benedictine liqueur. For those of you that don't know, Benedictine is an herbal liqueur that to me has hints of cola. To make a Preakness, first we're gonna do 2 dashes of Angostura Bitters, followed up with 1/4 ounce of Benedictine, along with 3/4 ounce of Sweet Vermouth. Lastly, we're gonna add 2 ounces of good old American rye whiskey. Next, we're gonna add some ice and give it a nice good stir. Now that we got that stirred up, let's go ahead and strain it into a chilled Nick and Nora. And now the drink is almost finished, but we're gonna top it off with a lemon twist. There you have it, the Preakness cocktail. And now the last cocktail that we're gonna be making out of the old Mr. Boston is a cocktail called the BENNETT cocktail, right? Kind of a boring name, really not much to it, but the drink is absolutely exquisite. You'll see how awesome it is when you can create complexity out of a cocktail that doesn't have very many ingredients. To start with, we're gonna do 2 dashes of Angostura Bitters, 3/4 ounce fresh squeezed lime juice. Next, we're gonna do 3/4 ounce simple syrup, which just like the name implies, 1 part sugar, 1 part water. Once more, we're gonna be reaching for the gin. In this case, it's 2 ounces of a bit of London Dry. Now let's go ahead and shake this up and get it served into a chilled coupe. Now that I have the drink strained into a coupe, I'm gonna go ahead and garnish that with a nice little lime wedge. Now the thing that's so cool about the BENNETT cocktail is it looks so simple, right? It's just a fresh lime gimlet with a couple dashes of Angostura Bitters. But you can really start to play around with it by switching up the gin. You know, if you use something like Beefeater, you're gonna end up with one cocktail. You know, use something like Aviation or Hendrick's or Tanqueray, and you're gonna end up with completely different cocktails, even though technically on paper they're the same drink. Because what you're doing is you're allowing the botanicals in the gin to interplay with the complexity of the bitters. Once you start switching up the bitters as well, in addition to switching up the gin, it's game over. There's just way too many endless possibilities and permutations, and it actually gets a lot of fun, especially if you're, I don't know, tasting with your staff and you wanna see what minute changes can do to the end result of a cocktail. Anyway, I could talk about the BENNETT for hours. I think it's better to taste one instead. Delicious. And there you have it, folks. 3 hidden gems out of the Old Mr. Boston, printed in 1969. What I mean by hidden gem cocktails, I mean the recipes that don't necessarily get a lot of shine. They're kind of forgotten in time. If you try to order them at most craft cocktail bars, they might not know what you're talking about because they might not have crazy cool names. They might not have crazy cool builds and infusions and tinctures and what have you, but they're still every bit as delicious as their more popular counterparts, like the Gimlet and the Sidecar and the Manhattan. So don't be afraid to give them a try. Especially if you're flipping through these old cocktail books, don't be afraid to try some drink that you've never heard before, because odds are you might discover a hidden gem yourself. And with that said, I really hope that you enjoyed this episode of Cocktail Limelight. Don't forget to muddle that subscribe button. And also, if you have a cocktail that you'd like us to make on a future episode, leave in the comments down below, and who knows, maybe it might be featured on a future episode. And also, if you would like to dive deeper into the world of craft cocktails, don't forget to check out our award-winning Bartender at Large Cocktail podcast, which I host over on iTunes, Spotify, and anywhere else where great podcasts are found. And with that said, thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you again next week.